All right, everybody. We're back with another episode of Don't Run with Light Hounds. It's going to be a little different this time around. This is going to be our first, our first podcast for Light Hounds solo. Um, Dixie Doggers Media got us going, and now we're going to kind of break off and be underneath them, but it's not going to be a segment anymore. It's going to be our own personal podcast. So today we got Mr. Patrick Montgomery out of Colorado. He runs lines and all kinds of stuff, and we're gonna get into it with him. How you doing, Mr. Montgomery?
Man, I'm doing great. Good to hear from you guys. How you guys doing?
Cannot complain. We had a good day in my neck of the woods.
Oh yeah, doing good.
Great day.
Good. Did you guys get out and do some hunting over there?
Not today.
Yeah. So y'all didn't get anything, did y'all, Joey?
No,
what were y'all doing today?
No,
Working?
nothing. Working.
Yeah, working.
Let's hear what you did. Look, the exciting. I know what you.
No, we got
was
out.
watching you.
Yeah. No, we snuck into a honey hole today and just got amongst them. It was good. We ended up with 11. Should have had 12. We had one break at the end. We didn't get caught, but all in all, man, it was from the time we got there to the time we were finished, it was running and gunning, and every dog we had found and bait its own hog by itself at some point throughout the day. So it was a good day, man. I cannot complain at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds like a good day of dog work anyway.
Yeah, and for me, I've got a bunch of young dogs, so it's really cool to, things are, at moments I'm like, what are you doing? And then the next moment I'm like, gosh damn, they're doing it, and like what's one female I have, she's 2 and she's doing it. And today they ran through and she broke off on one on her own and by herself went like a mile and a half and bait up a nice, 170-pound sow, and ended up, we were hunting at the back side of this property, and the front side is a sand pit. And hell, she bayed the pig up about 100 yards from a bunch of bulldozers and loaders and stuff in a briar thicket right by all the construction workers. So it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it can like we say out here, it can get a little western sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That's a fact. So tell us about yourself, Patrick. Tell us where you're at, and tell us what you do.
Well, I'm in Colorado. I live in Littleton, which is on the southwest side of Denver. I live kind of in a little community that kind of sits off to the side from the main city, so it feels like I live in a little bit of a smaller town. But I'm still living in a neighborhood. I've got hounds and I raise them and we hunt and we live with, I think I've got 6 neighbors that touch my same fence, on my backyard. So it's kind of close quarters to be raising dogs.
How many dogs you got at the house?
I've got 4 dogs. I got 1 red bone and then 3, they're kind of blue tick walker mixes, maybe a little bit of like English blue tick blood in them.
When how long have you been messing with dogs?
Well, technically, I guess I grew up training black labs with my dad. We raised field trial dogs, duck hunting dogs. We used a lot for pheasant hunting, so that was kind of my background. I didn't get my first hounds, for myself until 2013. So maybe 13 years I've been running my own dogs.
Yeah, that's right. And
yeah,
so
I started off.
You got straight into hounds with you got straight into running like the same particular bred dogs.
Yeah, I just got lucky. I've been a professional hunting guide my whole life. I've been hunting, deer, elk, antelope, turkeys, those kind of things. I was living in northern New Mexico for a bit. working on a big ranch there, a place called the Lodge at Chama. And it's kind of, it's a elk hunting mecca, if you will. There's a lot of outfitters that operate out of there, and I just got to be good friends with some of the other guides around there. And this one particular friend of mine was up there from Washington, right on the Washington-Oregon border, and we had done some hunting with another outfitter down there. That's kind of how we both had kind of got introduced to lion hunting with dogs. And anyway, he had a walker dog up there, and somehow he ended up breeding her with a Cameron hound, blue and pups. And he just called me one day out of the blue and asked if I was interested in getting a couple of my own. Finally at that point, I'd settled down in one spot, where I felt good about, raising dogs and not being on the move for a little while. So yeah, I had him send me a couple dogs down. I said, give me the most blue looking ones you have. And he sent a little boy, little girl, down for me. And those were my first two pups. I started off with Geronimo and Belle.
So what was your process with those first two dogs? Like how did you get started and how did that work?
Well, it was a whole lot of trial and error, to be honest with you, starting off. When before I even had my first two hounds, my MO was I would go out on snow days with no dogs at all, and I would just go look for tracks. And if I found a track, I would go and I'd kind of go out to one of the main roads someplace, and sooner or later I'd find a houndsman. Kind of deal with those hounds because I wanted to go, watch dogs. So I would tell those guys that, hey, you guys interested in running? I've got it. And they said, we want to go run a track, but do you want to go? And, some of them were cool with that, and some of them weren't. And the ones that were cool with it got to run tracks, and the ones that were, I guess too prideful or arrogant didn't get track. and
Funny.
Yeah, that's pretty good stuff there.
Yeah, so when I first started off with my first hounds, it was it was a learning experience for sure. I didn't have a whole lot of help. There was one or two guys that, as my dogs got older, they started letting me run my dogs with theirs a little bit, but it was pretty much just, me and the two dogs and kind of figuring it out.
That's the best way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the shortest way, but I think it's the best way in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it was the best way because what it forced me to do is spend a lot of time with my dogs following tracks, just walking, spending time together with them. And that's kind of become one of my main, keys to success, I think, is just a lot of time in the woods with my dogs. I try to start getting them out when they're super young, 10 weeks old. I want them to be in the woods enough to where nothing is really new and they're not distracted by anything, so that when they do come across a lion scent, they absolutely know what it is and the game we're playing, and there is no distractions. They can stay focused on that. It doesn't matter about foxes, coyotes, raccoons, those kind of things are all become secondary.
Yeah. No, I can totally see how that. Obviously, it's not the easiest, but I think at the end of the day, you're going to learn more about your dogs, by being there than setting your dogs down with a pack of other dogs, and then who knows who's doing what at that point in time. You know what I mean? You've got finished dogs that are going to be doing stuff, and who knows, your dog might have cut the track or leading the race or whatever, and it's kind of hard to tell sometimes on who's doing what when you've got a whole pack out there.
No, and that's absolutely, correct. At the end of the day, I want all of my dogs to be able to follow their own track, catch their own lion. I don't want just pack dogs, and that's just, I guess, maybe a different philosophy in mind than some other lion hunters. I know a lot of guys that have great packs and have great dogs, but that's the way that they do it. They raise their pups and they kind of put them in with the pack, and they just, either learn or they don't. Um, where I do, because I think it has to do with my background in training labs where, we design a bunch of drills, that we run them through. I've kind of done that with my hounds. I have, different activities that we do with a specific training purpose in mind, where there's no animals involved, it's just, kind of very similar to training labs for duck hunting or field trials, I would say.
Yeah. To me, it's like, it's almost the bird dog stuff to me is, I mean, it seems like it's almost like the difference in between like military training and just going out and doing random stuff. So like you can train a bird dog. I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, but year round if you've got the time and the place and the stuff. If you're training a lion hound, like you've got to be out in the woods and get on lion tracks, right? And with the bird dog stuff, to me, it's like every evening you can go out and do blind retrieves and all those things. I'm not the most versed on it, but I have had a few bird dogs.
Sure.
It's just it's a whole different animal. But I've always been curious. I've got a buddy now that I run sight hounds with, and he's got a background in retriever stuff. And it's funny watching his little quirks and ticks and things that he does while we're out. And you could totally put two and two together, like, oh, he used to run retrievers and do trials and all those things. And it's kind of funny to see because it makes perfect sense when you're out and about. He's very, very precise and very uses the same commands and does all these things. And it's funny to see that stuff bridge over to running like hounds or sight hounds like we're doing. It's a whole different operation, but you can bridge the gap and bring the two together, and that's what it sounds like to me, like what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's, and that's what is interesting is that you can, use aspects from, different breeds and different type of hunting and incorporate them, into what you're doing. And I feel like the more that we do that, borrow and steal from other sports and, add them into our own, the more rounded we'll be, just in general. And the more rounded my dogs will be, that my dogs, because I do live in the city, they also, they have to be polite. They have to not bark in the backyard. They have to handle well outside my yard in the front yard. I need them to come and call, and I keep them in the garage is where they've got their kennels, and that's where they sleep at night. So for me, it's a necessity, that they, act polite, behave, handle well. Some people that live a little bit more in the country and don't have those same, requirements and stipulations going on around them, might not have to have that same type of, handle on their dogs. And, to each their own, it's fine.
No, that's a guarantee. I mean, I know I have several friends that live out and dogs are barking all damn day long. And, hell, even in my house, like I've got a few that are just want to bark more than others, but, I got 15 acres and they're, the neighbors I got two neighbors and, they're pretty decent a ways away. But I don't think I'm pestering them too much, but I know they hear the dogs, and
Sure.
and it's been recently. I've been bringing in a bunch of new dogs over the last 2 years, uh, and some of them just like to talk more than others. And I swear I've got a puppy right now, but I've never had a bark collar, and I bought a bark collar for this dog specifically. and he is. I've got to figure it out. I'm pretty sure that the collar will like transition from 1 to 10. Say it goes from the lowest shock to the highest shock. The more they bark, right? Well, I
Right.
think I just need to put it on hammer down the immediate second he barks, because he barks at a very low octave repeatedly, and it's almost like he's figured out how to bark and just barely get shot. I don't know. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that's how it's working, because he's got just a very steady and it's like, dude, what are you doing? And I saw it. So last week we went on a little aoudad hunt, and we took a bunch of kids out, and one of the boys made a fast shot on the aoudad, hit it in the butt, and broke him down, but was still alive when we got on the track. Well, I put two young dogs down, and this was his first live animal to bay. And when he got when he got there, he's still doing a ooh 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 ooh. I was like, talk to him, let's go, like let's go. And I'm like, he's thinking he's gonna get shocked. I think he knows to stay on that lower octave. And like I said, I may be wrong on how that collar works, but I'm pretty sure I've got it on that setting. So he's like, it's not a full rip and bay like the other dog next to him. It's like he's like, I know if I can bark this quiet, it'll be okay. I'll only get shocked a little bit.
Well, it sounds like a pretty smart dog to me.
Yeah, he's made right. I'm pretty excited about him, but it's just funny. I'm like, but he's also very freaking annoying. So it's like, you give and take on a thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I totally get how having a handle and stuff like that will pay off. Especially for your situation. And a lot of people get away with not having to worry about that. Like most people I run with, there's no sit, stay, come, any of that stuff. It's, get a head caught hog, or, it's dead or whatever it is. And then, going about your business. There's not just a whole lot of the obedience type stuff, because,
Sure.
really at the end of the day, you can get away with not having it for what we do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the other thing that it's good for me is I live just on the outskirts of Denver, so I do a lot of hunting on foot. I like to hike a lot of trails here in the foothills that are also used by a lot of other people. I've got mountain bikers out here. I've got just normal hikers. I've got other people with dogs. I've got people on horseback doing equestrian stuff. And most of the time I'm trying to get out at daylight, and I'm usually back in, unless I've got something going. If we go out and we don't strike anything, I'm usually out of there before a lot of people show up. But it's also nice to, when I'm on the trail and hiking and passing people, to be able to, keep my dogs under control. If there's a horse walking by, or if there's mountain bikers coming up, I can tone them back to me real quick and have them sit down and let them pass. And it's, like I said, for me, it's just a necessity.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. While we're on that subject, what are the rules up there in Colorado? I know I'm pretty sure there's a season and all that stuff. So what are your regulations, and like where can y'all hunt? Is it wilderness? Is it national land? What is it?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, there's always a lot of myths around, the cougar hunting and the mountain lion hunting. People that don't know much about it, think that they're endangered or going extinct, and they can't believe that we get to hunt them. Which is not the case at all. There's actually quite a few mountain lions. There's not a shortage of them by any means, and it's because at least in our state, up to this point, Colorado Parks and Wildlife has done a very good job of managing the species. The biologists have a pretty good handle on the number, as much as you can with mountain lions, and they have the state divided up into different units, and they combine 4 or 5 of these units into an area, and then they kind of set quotas. So there's a certain amount of mountain lions that they want harvested every year. And that's the quota, and it's going to be different for different areas and different units. The way that the season works is it usually opens the first Monday after the 4th big game rifle season. So we're not out there running while there's any big game hunts. going on. We are allowed to hunt public land, national forest, BLM land. We can also hunt on private property. Um, Obviously, we're not supposed to, go onto other people's property or let dogs out on private property. That's going to still be, a
Right.
big no-no. So that can be, a little bit tricky, here around the Denver area. There's some little subdivisions and communities and stuff that, right in the middle of some national forest that, sometimes these cats, that's where they like to go because that's where all the tame deer live. That's where they hunt. You've got these little islands in the middle of the national forest where everybody's got, a bunch of pet deer and, the lions know that, and that's where they go to hunt. And, some of these communities are actually pretty good about, if they've got, cats walking through there that they don't really want there because they've got pets, they've got horses and goats and, dogs and all that other stuff. So sometimes, we've got some good agreements where like the association, the homeowners association, will sometimes give us a call and ask us if we can, come help, run a lion out of their subdivision. Most of the time they don't want us to kill them, which is fine, but we can go in there and, and just help educate a cat that it's not a good idea to keep coming into these subdivisions. And, for me, that's really a big primary purpose of why it is that I'm a houndsman and where I hunt and why I do it is I hunt there with the specific purpose of trying to keep these cats educated that people, dogs, pets, joggers, mountain bikers are not food sources, or they shouldn't be anyways. And I feel fairly confident that in doing that in the past 10 years, we haven't had, at least in my area, I mean, I don't know of any mountain lions attacks on people. Once in a while, you might hear something about a goat or something. So I think I contribute to that. Maybe not. I might just be making it up, but
No, that's a lot of times if I post a bunch of videos on my page and I try to keep a good mindset on what I'm posting, sometimes inevitably there'll be a video that's a little more gruesome or whatever, but I've had people always, the lions are a big deal for people. The big cats it hits people in the fields, and I usually pay really close attention to those posts because it's, I'm not the guy with the lion hounds, but I'm trying to speak for the guy, and a lot of guys I'll tag, and some guys don't even care. They just send me cool videos, and they're good with me posting them. But I try to stay on top of those, and my main I guess argument per se would be like most of these lions aren't getting killed, like they're getting driven out of suburban areas, and it's trying to educate them to be fearful of humans and dogs. It's not so much running and killing every lion they see. Like a lot of these are nuisance type animals that they have no fear of humans or pets or any of those things. Like, I mean, as we've all seen in California over the last couple of years, like their human attacks are way up compared to Colorado or anywhere else where you can still run hounds, and it's and most of those people that are commenting the negative stuff, they don't have a damn idea on the planet. So it's like I try to go out of my way on those type scenarios to educate the best that I can with the little knowledge that I have. Like I know what you're up to, and like you just said, like that's kind of your MO. That's what you're after, and it can be it's a struggle with anytime you post anything. It doesn't matter what it is. People are always going to have a negative mindset towards houndsmen and stuff, and you got to be cognizant of what you post and all those things. But I kind of like posting something as bait, and then I try to educate with comments that come in, and I've had a bunch of a handful of just, it's like talking to a liberal, ridiculous that you're not going to ever be able. It's like talking to a brick wall. You're never going to be able to change your mind. But a handful I have. I've been able to conversate. I've had people message me, and I'll go out of my way on those specifically to try to, sway their mindset on what they think they're seeing when, they don't have a damn idea what they're looking at. They're just kind of emotionally looking at a video. And yeah, that's kind of one of my passions right now with the stuff that I do post is like, okay, this is a borderline video that should or should not be posted. Now, I'm not going to post any videos of cats getting shot or blown out of a tree or anything like that, but a lion treed with 10 dogs below it, ruffles feathers. But it's also a chance to educate folks. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's a fine line, because at the end of the day, we don't want to be ashamed of our sport. I mean, that's what we do, and that's part of it. And we as houndmen, we know what's going on, but there's some of that stuff that it's not necessary to show the public. It's there's not really an educational purpose behind it. So there's some of the stuff that, okay, we can still be true to the sport without having to go overboard with what we share. At the end of the day, you're never going to be able to make everybody happy. And nobody's going to ever agree. As houndsmen, I'm not going to agree with everything that another houndsman does, but, they're his dogs. He can run them the way that he wants to. He can post what he wants to, but there's going to be, you have to be able to accept the consequences and take responsibility for that as well. So just, you got to kind of balance it all out and, try to make the best decisions to share our sport in an educational way. I too have had some of those conversations, and, where people just arguing back and forth, and people will send me private messages. Hey man, just leave it alone. You're never going to win this argument. You're right. I might not win that argument, but in the thread, I can lay down enough key bullet point stuff that people that are following it, that are not even actively engaged in the argument, can still pick it up and learn, and that's part of what I'm trying to do, is just, trying to educate people and, keep the sport of us that we like and love, alive.
Yeah. No, there's thousands of people that are reading comments that have absolutely nothing to do with the conversation. Like, I very rarely am going to comment on a video that I do not like or I don't agree with or anything, but I will go through the comments and see what other people are saying about it. And, most, I still like to say the majority of people are good and want to see the good in things. And we'll go through and read your replies to a video or mine or whatever, and be like, oh, well, that makes sense. Or, I can't tell you how many old ladies have messaged me, why are you killing those coyotes? They didn't do nothing to you. I was like, oh, they killed 3 chickens last week. Oh, well, I have chickens too. I don't blame you there, And it's like immediately it changes. And I'm sorry for even messaging you. Like, it's crazy. Like, their whole entire mindset changes immediately when you hit the same level of whatever they're doing. That oh wait, we're kind of the same people. Like, you have chickens at your house, or you raise goats, or whatever, whatever it is. And like I said,
there's a good lesson in there somewhere. Yeah, but so there's definitely a good lesson in there that we're probably all more alike than we are different. If we can learn to focus and make those connections, and probably going to be better off for us all the way around.
Yeah, that's kind of. Like I said, I've had other houndsmen message me and be like, dude, why would you post that? And I'm like, well, number one, it's legal, and number two, like it's a chance to educate folks if they do something, And then I have guys that send me some rank shit, and I'm like, why won't you post that? I'm like, dude, I'm not posting that shit. Like, you're great. Like, that's too much. You know what I mean? Like
right.
Coyotes getting stretched out, or bears getting, just stupid stuff that should not be on. Like, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if I post?
But Oh my God.
Imagine if I posted a video of, a 60, 70-pound kitten getting stretched out by 8 hound dogs.
Yeah, that's not a thing. That's nothing to be proud
No,
of. That's nothing that if
it's not
you're
a
a little
flex.
houndsman and if you're proud of that, then I mean, more power to you. But that's kind of ridiculous. And and I've seen a bunch where it's like, God Almighty, like why would you do that? And anyways, I always try to I don't know, fend for myself because I'll post a handful of stuff and like, wow, I mean, I've had some like pretty well known houndsmen slash famous people message me telling me I shouldn't do that. And I'm like, man, like it's legal and I understand what we're doing, but it's also, there's, I have morals. I'm not like, I'm not going to post the other 20 videos I got sent today of other things. There's kind of I don't know.
Yeah,
There's a fine line. I don't know where the hell it's at, but I try to deviate around as best I can.
yeah, and I don't know where that line is either. I mean, at the end of the day, you are correct. I mean, it's sometimes you've got to, start a conversation, and that's one way, of doing it. But, it's just the more negative we put out there, the more negative, we're going to get back from, through the same media and stuff like that. So I just try to, show my sport. The main thing that I'm trying to show is the love that we have for the dogs. And that's what it's about. Everybody thinks it's, why do you want to kill those cats? Man, I don't want to kill those cats. To be honest with you, I mean, dead cats don't leave tracks. Yeah, we keep a lot of them. I keep most of them alive. I catch this year. I've caught, I don't know. I think like we've caught 15 cats this winter since the beginning of December, and 3 of them actually were real good toms. 150-pound plus cats, and we didn't kill any of them. And then the people said, "Well, why didn't you kill them?" I said, "Man, the guys that I had with me, they just really thought that it was a neat experience, and they didn't feel like they needed to kill that cat, and I'm good with that because then I get to go catch them again."
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Like it's a little different than what we do down here with the pigs and stuff, but I totally, occasionally I'm like, man, why did we kill that 150-pound boar? Like he's going to be a good boar in a couple of years. But like most of the guys we're hunting for are nuisance type guys, and if they knew we were letting go of pigs, they'd be like, "What? You're not coming back." Like,
yeah, you guys got a different mission down there.
Yeah, no, it's a lost cause to an extent. I mean, you try to do the best you can, but we're fighting a losing battle down here.
Well, and sometimes, I'll get calls from landowners, specifically that they have a cat on their property and they want it gone, so there is absolutely a management part of it as well. And if that's what the landowner says, it's his land, he's trying to protect his livestock or whatever he's got going on there, and that's what we'll do. I'll say, I'm not going to burn my tag on it, but if you want to go get a tag, we'll come up there and we'll hunt your property. And if we catch a cat on it, you can make the decision yourself about what you want to do with it. That's the way that goes.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. I was gonna circle back. So whenever you talked about your first dogs and you got started, how long before you caught your own line with your 2 dogs?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting story in itself. But I would say that I bet we followed about 15, 16 cats by ourselves. And by followed, normally the way that I start my dogs, trailing cats is the first time we're on a trail anyways, I will keep them leashed. And most of the time we're following a track in the snow so I can see the track. So I'll keep them leashed as we walk down the track. And as they start to stick their nose down in each track more and more, they have a visual there. And So they gradually start doing that. And as they build excitement, start pulling on the leash, then I'll clip them off the leash and let them follow the trail. Normally, when they first start off, when they're young pups, I'm trying to have them able to do this by at least my dogs. I want them to be able to be trailing by the time they're 5.5 months old. So I'll clip them, and they just don't have the confidence yet to really send it, so they'll go out, maybe 100 yards, and then they'll come back down the trail and check in. Then you kind of encourage them and get them to go, and they'll do that. So I did that with my first 2 hounds for probably about 3 months, I would say 3-4 months, probably about 15 cats. And each time, they got a little bit better, went a little bit further. And then, at the end of their first season, so I started training them really in January. So by April of that year, they were capable of catching their own cat. Now, the first cat that I thought we were going to catch, and I know that they were just about to tree it, I had another houndsman come and dump his dogs, cut me off, and dump all his dogs in on my race and ruined it for me. But that I still consider, that they would have had their first tree at that point in time. And then the next year, the following season, the first cat we ran, they did tree that one completely all by themselves.
I gotta hear more about this. So did he dump on a track that he cut, or did he dump on the sound of your hounds? Or how'd that work?
Oh no! Oh yeah, no, it was dirty, super dirty. I found the track. I knew there was another road up where the cat was walking to, so I had enough time that I went ahead and drove up there, ran that whole road, and the cat hadn't crossed the road yet. So I went back to where it had crossed the road. Sat there till legal shooting time. We can't turn our dogs loose until half hour before sunrise. So I had to wait till legal shooting time. When that came, I turned my dogs out, and man, they took off. Good. They were doing good. So I just put on my backpack. I started following them on foot. Especially when you're training pups, you've got to be on the trail with those dogs, just to help them sort out, any little mess. And also it's a confidence booster. They're going to come back, and if they don't bump into you, you're going to create dogs that just want to come back to the truck all the time. So, so just hiking behind the dogs, and they were headed towards that other road. We were into it about 2 miles, and they were kind of veering up to that road, and I could hear this other truck coming down the road. I could hear him coming, and then he stopped. And I figured he stopped where that cat had come up and crossed the road. So it had probably been crossed within the half hour or so of him driving up there, maybe less.
Oh, yeah.
So he got to the track, and I know he got out of the truck, had to look at the track, and could hear my dogs. Because I could hear his truck. I could hear him turn his truck off. So he heard my dogs coming. And next thing I know, my dogs aren't barking anymore.
Oh.
And they're stopped on the road. And then I hear his dogs barking. So I'm getting pretty livid at this point. I figured this out. And then this some bitch drove up and got down the track, was looking at it, heard my dogs coming, caught my dogs, let his dogs go. And to be fair enough, he did let my dogs go about 5 minutes later, and they, went up there, and they were all at the tree, together when we got there. And it was a guy that I had known, one of the guys that I had found tracks for, brought in with his dog so that he could catch the cat. And, he tried to play it off like, well, I didn't hear any dogs. I didn't know any. I just turned my dogs out on the track, Patrick,
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm.
that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. But whatever, it's all good.
Wow. That's wow.
So so he turned your dogs loose before you got up there and let them go to the tree, or?
Yeah. So he let his dogs get about a 5-minute head start. I mean, they already almost had that cat treed, but he let him get about a 5. Yeah, they were running it. That cat had been jumped and was running across the road, and and so yeah, he let his dogs get about 5 minutes out, and then let my dogs go again. And I didn't have it sounded like they all kind of grouped it together, and I think they probably treated it all together. So it was good. It was good training for my dogs. Next time I turned them out on a track, they caught it. So I'm not gonna cry too much, but yeah, I was livid in the moment. Hot.
Mm-hmm.
So did you meet him at the cross where he cut the track, or did you meet him at the tree?
No, I met him at the tree.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So I kind of snuck through the woods, and that's what I wanted to know, if he knew what he was doing or didn't know what he was doing. So I kind of snuck through the woods and snuck up there, and I saw him, and he kept looking back over his shoulder down the trail. I mean, obviously my dogs were there at that point in time, so he knew. He knew.
Now did he have a hunter with him? Was he outfitting?
No, he wasn't. To my knowledge, he was not an outfitter. He did have a hunter with him, and that was the main reason why there probably wasn't. Why we probably weren't rolling around in the snow.
Yeah.
I just, wasn't worth it for me, especially in front of his buddy. I didn't want to embarrass him too much. So it was all is what it is, He knows.
He knew. Yeah, he was getting. This was a money deal, I would imagine. I mean, it was. Here's a hot track. Well, let's pretend like my dog's finished it, and blah blah, and he gets paid.
No, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. They knew it was a good Tom. They were trying to kill it. I wasn't trying to kill it. I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. So, but that's how it went down.
I'll be down. Yeah, that's a hell of a first tree for the pups.
Yeah, right? Huh? Yeah, that's what I was naming it about. I said, man, you spoiled it. They were just about to catch this cat, and you had to put your lousy mutts into the race and ruin it for me.
I can only imagine. I'm just picturing that in my head. I'd be like, you've got your young dogs. You've been just following them for miles and miles and miles for months and months, and then finally get
hundreds of miles.
Yeah, and that bullshit happened. Oh boy. Oh Lord. Yeah, that's a whole different animal up there. Like, most of the stuff I hunt's private land. Like, we're not gonna run into other hog hunters or deer trackers or whatever. So yeah, I can.
Oh yeah, no,
it's a competition.
Oh yeah, competition is stiff, especially here on the Front Range. I've always said that if they were to do a show, maybe we can work something out here. But if they were to do a show like Deadliest Catch, but just follow different houndsmen, in a certain area, where the competition is tight, and just film everything that goes on, because there's been lots of dirt baths out here, I promise you. Where houndsmen will get into it over a track, and who was there first, and blah blah blah. Sometimes these cats will walk 15 miles in a night. So if it's doing that and it crosses 2 or 3 different roads, there's a chance that 2 or 3 different packs of hounds can end up following the same cat, all spread out by 4 or 5 miles.
Wow. Yeah.
That can get interesting at a tree.
Yeah. And now I have heard here where we live at, and I have It's on a property not far from ours. But now this one guy really wasn't supposed to be where he was at. But when he got to the bay, his dogs were there, and there were some other dogs there. And then the guy that was actually trespassing was, was asking him what his damn problem was and why he was there. I was like, wow. And they were actually on a little piece of public land. That's the only thing that really saved him, because like here where we live at, everything is private. I mean, like we can't hardly hunt much public land at all for anything. And not with dogs anyway, but you can squirrel hunt and coon hunt a little bit. That's about it. But everything else here is stand your ground law we have in effect. And so if you're on private land and somebody else there's been a lot of people that have been shot. A lot.
Sure.
I'm talking about a shit ton of, and they're at somebody's gate. And you're like, yeah, he tried to break in my gate. And you're like, you shot him with a 30-06 from 400 yards. It's like, they just don't. It's like, damn, bro, calm down. But, I've always wondered that. I'm sorry to get in y'all's conversation, but you know how I am. I'm going to talk anyway. But
no, yeah.
It's always
it's interesting.
Yeah, that was a good one, wasn't it, Ricky? It was wild, wasn't it? We went to Michigan coyote hunting with some hounds, and it was like that. There were people. Everybody was pretty nice, except for a couple of guys we were with. One of them was a jerk for real and hated everybody and had a vendetta against everybody for whatever reason. But I found it kind of amazing at points of how everybody could work together when they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Sure. And there's and it's kind of like Deadliest Catch. All those captains, they're all buddies and they're all, friends until it's time to go to work.
That's right.
And that's kind of the way it is out here. We can all share pictures on Instagram and videos, and, we, for the most part, get along until all of a sudden we're in the exact same area trying to catch the same cat. Then it's kind of every man, woman, and child for himself. But there's also times, too, where, if I'm by myself, and I don't have a hunter, and I'll talk to some other houndsman that, he's only out there, by himself. We've each got 3 or 4 dogs. We're allowed to run 8 in a pack in Colorado. So, yeah, sometimes we'll just team up and just go catch a cat, and, everything's fine. It's what changes everything is when it's a big tom. And those are what people are, wanting to kill. We don't kill females, generally speaking. But when there's a big tom, in the area or coming through, yeah, he's got some heat. There's people looking for him for sure.
Oh, it's too funny. I mean, I laugh from here because it's I could just see it going down in the 3 foot of snow on the side of a mountain.
Oh yeah, there's
2 guys rolling down the hill beating the shit out of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I promise it's happened. I promise.
So that was your first. That was like close to the first tree, right? And then you're saying you so the very next season, did you inherit any more dogs between then and there, or did you still have the same 2?
Yeah, nope. I still had the same 2. The next year, the first day of the season, it didn't really have any snow on the ground. Actually, pretty much they caught their first for sure solo cat, mostly on dry ground.
That's badass.
Yeah, I was just hiking with them down this major canyon, where cats, cross, and we got lucky enough that we found a deer kill down there. That line had just fed on it that night, so they were able to find the out on that, and got that cat treed within, probably about 1.5 miles of that deer kill, and like they'd been doing it their whole lives. It's just one of those things, especially with these. Yeah, but when it clicks, it's literally almost an overnight thing. They struggle and struggle, for maybe 20 cats, and then they do one right by themselves, and they catch the next 10 in a row.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh yeah.
So, what do you prefer? I mean, if you're gonna go cast out? Do you want it to be dry, or do you want it to be snow on the ground?
For me, if I'm going to be hiking and free casting, then I prefer it to be just dry all the way across. If it's going to be snow, usually if there's enough snow to cut tracks on, then I'm going to be driving just because I can cover a little bit more territory. But this year, we haven't had much snow, so I've done a lot of hiking. And normally what I try to do is I don't like to walk down a road and then have to come back the same way. So I'll try to plan loops, and if I can find a trail or something, here, a hiking trail that makes about an 8 to 10 mile loop, that's what I prefer to hike. Sometimes, even this year I've been we rode our dogs quite a bit. So, after doing it for 15 years, and you get to know where the crossings are, where these cats, tend to cross, whatever reason the cat comes through an area one time, you can almost bank on it that, there's going to be more cats that travel through that same area. So once you figure those areas out, actually, hunting dry ground is not as difficult because I can load my dogs up, drive down the road to an area, let my dogs out and road them for a mile, just through an area that I know cats cross. If they don't pick something up, I can throw them back in the box, drive, 5 miles down the road and let them out in another area, for a mile. And I just like to, let them work in front of the truck. Truck's only going, 3 or 4 miles an hour down a little 2 track, and the dogs, just stay in front and free casting. And so that's how we hunt them when there is no snow, like it's been most of this year.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, it's been bad for everybody.
Sure.
You good with that, Ricky? I wanted with the road hunting the dogs. We rode our dogs a lot. All right, with you having hounds, we have a lot of hound. We got a lot of curs, and we have 1 or 2 hounds, and we'll have some hound cur mixes or whatever, So they're not as strong. No, they don't have the stronger nose as your dogs do. But I also know some guys that run straight hounds, and they always prefer to ride and rig versus road hunting. And even in smaller areas, like you said, put them down for a mile or 2. And this has been, I'm going to say, it's almost been an argument, and they're like, you don't make any sense by putting these dogs on the ground. I'm like, I do. That's the way I do mine. And they're like, well, we can ride around it and we can rig more. What is your outlook on that, rigging versus roading?
Well, like I said, I here in Colorado, we don't hunt bears. So I've never rigged my dogs, for anything. Mm-hmm. It's my understanding that a lot of the time when you're rigging, you're actually, they're catching scent off the animals. I guess maybe sometimes they're just smelling tracks, but mountain lions don't. They've got a pretty small pad, and they're not stinky like a bear. Mm-hmm. So they have kind of a very, mild scent. So I don't know that my dogs could rig a lion track, up on a rack, and that's what we're trying to find. So they're, on the ground with their nose to the ground, trying to find the specific footprint, that lion or bobcat has come through and made.
Yes. And
that's just my understanding about it.
Yeah, it's less scent. And, and I've also looked at that as well through like coyote guys that run track, they do the same thing. They want them on the ground, coyote guys, fox guys, bobcat guys, mountain lion guys. They want the dogs on the ground to put their nose in that track. And you have some hog hunters and some bear hunters that will ride and rig. We have rigged. Right. We've rigged more on accident than we ever did on purpose. All the dogs just blow up in the box. Well, and generally when we dump them out, hey, it's right there. It's hot.
Yeah.
But since messing with,
so they actually smelt the animal itself.
They smelt the animal itself.
Yeah.
And we live in the hills, not really the mountains. We're in the foothills. So,
gotcha.
in the mornings, get up high and ride around. and let the thermals play with you. And, you can rig something. Generally, they're going to go down. And then in the evenings, everything's been moving around. So we start in the bottoms and let them bust up to the top. I just didn't know how much that played a factor with the mountain lion, because all of us look up to the dry ground line hounds. And if people say they don't, they're a damn lie, because that's like the epitome.
Oh yeah, no,
that's the epitome of a track dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, that's what we all kind of aspire to be. I feel fortunate that I live in an area where I get to do both. And that's why I hike my dogs as much as they do. I'll tell you this, I'd say 90% of the hounds around me can't run dry ground.
I got you.
They're snow dogs. They don't go anywhere. They get exercise and they get roaded, but they don't get hunted on dry ground. And it causes them a big problem, because a lot of this stuff, the snow that we get around here, it'll snow, it'll be there for a day or two, but then it's going to melt off all the south-facing slopes. And I can go drive up any one of these little canyons enough to find a track and find the direction it's going in the snow. But as soon as it goes up and over a south slope across that dry ground, like I said, 90% of the houndsmen, they're lost. Yeah, they can't do it. So that gives me an advantage. Some guys do. Yeah, there's some. I know a houndsman. That's all he runs is plots. And
so he doesn't.
He does good.
Oh, does he? Does he?
Yeah. They catch cats. He does real good with them.
Snow, or
it might just be his breeding, or his are all snow dogs.
Gotcha. Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah. No, there's guys that run them. I've got a kid that I'm kind of helping apprentice right now that's got a plot pup that we're going to try to get going for him. The ones that I've seen, they make better bear dogs, in my opinion. But there's guys that use them.
Cool. I was just curious. Now that was all I was wanting to talk about. I appreciate y'all letting me ask the question.
That's it? That's all you wanted to know?
Well,
okay.
I was just really curious. Ricky's doing the interview. I'm just sitting over here trying not to talk.
Okay.
I could chime in on that. So today we had 5. We had 5 bay dogs, right? So they're a couple more hounds, a couple more cur, and then one we don't know what the hell he is. And anyways, we were swapping. We were doing 2 at a time or 3 at a time, right? When we'd catch a couple, we'd load those 3 up, and we'd dump the other 2. We'd load catch a couple. It was one of those days where it was actually like that. It rarely is, but at the end of the day, we were like, man, we caught 8 or whatever it was, and then I was like, man, I'm happy. Like, we can go home now. And the guy that owned the place or whatever that had the access, he's like, man, we got like 600-800 more yards. Let's just dump them and let's finish it. I'm like, okay. Well, we dumped 2 hounds, and then the dog that doesn't know what he's doing, he's just out there. We're trying to train, right? So the hounds hit a trail, and they're tearing ass. They're rolling off. They're kind of 100 yards off the road, but kind of parallel on the road, and they're at 600-700. And I'm like, man, we're missing a lot of ground right here with the wind blowing into us. And those hounds were on a track. So we got radios between 2 trucks, and I radioed Cody. I was like, hey man, I'm gonna drop this cur dog. And I've got another dog that's mainly plot, but got a little cur. And I said, I'm gonna drop them because we're missing some winding right here. Like, we're missing some ground right here. He's like, yeah, go ahead. So inevitably that's the, hey, we're done, and then now we got all our dogs on the ground. we get going, and sure enough, that the hound, the little plot bit, she's kind of doing her own thing, and I'm not really paying a whole lot of attention. for some reason where we were today, the reception was terrible the entire time. If the dogs got 300 yards from the truck, I lost them. And my buddy had a big antenna on his, and he was able to kind of keep in touch. Well, we dropped them too, and we're doing the roading type deal. We're just driving down the road, and we get down, and I was like, man, I swear I heard a bark. So I stopped the truck, turned the pickup off, and I hear chop 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 chop, and it's about 200 off to my right. And I was like, hey, who's on the right? And he's like, oh, that's Marge, and Marge is the straight cur dog. Well, the wind's blowing right out that direction. And I was like, is Wiley with her? He goes, no, she's by herself. I'm like, well, I'll be down. Well, we sure enough, the hounds went on their own way. They're tracking their little asses off, and here we are passing a pig 200 yards off the road, and that cur winded it, you know. And of course, which was cool because we went over and caught that pig. We loaded her up, and then we went to the hounds, and they had their pig bait. So it was cool.
Which pig
because
was
you just saw.
And be honest,
the
be
hounds.
honest. Yeah, be honest. Okay.
The hounds. The hounds.
It's always going to be the biggest, unless it was Jet, a plot that I hunted with this past weekend, and we climbed down a mountain, and it weighed 20 pounds, and that boy didn't turn the bulldog loose. I'm talking about we didn't turn. She was down there, yelp, 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 yelp. And I got about halfway, and I looked up, and I seen this big American bulldog looking thing coming down the hill. I said, "Shit, you ain't got to turn him loose." And White Boy Rick and Tough, the little cur dog, they were about 2 miles the other way. They done stopped about 10 times and done that. Then they finally got off on a good one and ran him for about 3 hours. Got him to swim the river, and then we come back and we ran a couple of deer for an hour. You know, so that plot started every bit of it. I got a vendetta against plots now.
Oh yeah,
that's why I bring that up. Just letting y'all know that.
I will say that one of mine, she's finally honed in. I watched her look at some deer run by the other day, and I was like, I'll be damned.
But she's
finally figured it out.
We might have some blue tick crosses coming out real soon, boys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that lower
on
back,
purpose?
that belly kind of kicked down a little bit, and the boobs are getting a little filled out, like a fat girl on Saturday night. Boys, looking good.
Looking milky.
Yeah. Now you're talking my language. Blue ticks.
Yes. And then we're gonna put a running walker over this blue tick one of these days.
Oh yeah, that'll be a good one.
I think I got one that's pretty cold
for me.
I got one that's cold nosed for what he is, you know what I mean? Compared to some of the others we've seen. But as far as like what he's supposed to be in the fox pens and running fox or coyotes and stuff, he sucks at that. But he does pretty good at hogs. So, you know, like he really does.
There's a place for all of them.
Yes, there is.
You said there's a place for all of them, and it made me kind of. We were talking earlier at the very beginning. We talked about dogs that did their own thing, and then pack mentality type dogs.
Logan.
And some guys run a pack, and some might run one or two or three or whatever. But today, we have this hound bitch that will find pigs like nobody's business, but does not give much of a fuck about banning them. And without another dog with her, you get 100 yards from her. She comes and looks at you. She'll leave the pig, like, hey, I found it. We're done here.
Put that cur dog over
she's rolling on to the next one.
Put that cur dog over top.
Boy, I know.
She'll stay there.
I know it. I know. Yeah, and that's what we talked about it, and I was like, man, like, she's as good as they come finding them. Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, like, she'll roll out and she will find them. Mm-hmm. But if there's not a dog with her,
she don't care about
today. No, it's just there's not a whole lot of bay. She likes finding them, but don't give a shit about baying them.
That's the problem that we run into.
That one that got away today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the first time I've really noticed it. And like I said, I don't have just a whole lot of damn experience doing the hog dog shit, so.
Well, it was like that with some of the curs. They didn't stay hooked, for a long time. That's the problem.
So now we're reversing it. Like, what the fuck,
dude? It's like, well, I'm gonna say some of the curs that we had, not everybody's curs. So we had to find the right cur dogs, and that was a long process. And then we found the right hounds that we liked, and like I said, so that that's where our program is kind of going to. But at the same time, all the people that I've interviewed and talked to over the past 5 years, and it's well up in the hundreds, and most of those guys had issues. Their main gripe was a dog not staying put. Like
that's the first time I've seen that.
Yeah. So I didn't know, like in the cat world, that's got to be a super important thing. I would figure is to stay pressure on that tree.
Stay tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what'll happen, again with these pups. Like my 2 pups, they treed their first cat this year by themselves. They got one treed when they were 5 months old, but they didn't know to stay there. They were so excited about what they did. They stayed there for about a minute, and then they turned around and wanted to run back to me and, hey, Dad, look, come here, check this out.
Yeah.
So, and then the bloodline on my females, I've got a 3rd generation female now. I said they're just turned 9 months, but, they've already got about 15 cats underneath them. But the females, and it's been that way with all of them. Yeah, they would rather track. They would rather trail than tree. There ain't no doubt about it. And it's good in some ways, as long as I've got other dogs. And that's why I tend to keep, also some males of my bloodline around, because the males, for whatever reason, they tend to want to stay treat. Maybe they're just a little bit aggressive or what. But a lot of times we'll, run cats, and they'll be pairs. There'll be a tom with a female, or sometimes you'll have a female traveling with, basically full grown, sub-adults, that are 9, 10, 11 months old. So I tend to catch, multiples at times, because as soon as my dogs get one treed, that female, whether, it started off with Belle and then Penny does it, and now Izzy's doing it too, they just want to track. They'll circle that tree and they'll pick up on that other track where it kept going. And so they'll go and catch that one while my other dogs will stay treed at the first one. So I've like Penny now, she's probably caught, I don't know, probably 30 cats, by herself, and some of them big, 170-pound toms. I'm not sure exactly how that all works out, but he does it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, you want to have dogs that'll stay there. And once I've got my dogs, once they get to be about 2 years old, I'll have dogs that'll stay treed overnight, into the next day.
Wow.
Sometimes 2 nights. If they get way back in a canyon someplace and something happens, snowstorm, you can't get back to them. Yeah, they'll still be treed there in the morning. If you can get back there to them. So
that's pretty wild.
So so when you were saying the pups and they leave the tree and come back to you, will a lion sneak out that tree and roll out, or will he?
And that's what happened. This one jumped, but this particular female, she lives pretty close to me. I get to run her a lot. I've probably caught her, over the past 8 years. I bet I've caught her 9 or 10 times. So she generally doesn't stay treed very long anyways. She'll jump up in a tree, just get out of reach of the dogs, maybe 10 foot off the ground. And as soon as she sees me getting anywhere close, then she'll bail. She might do that 10 times in a day. Yeah,
probably just gets, though, right?
Oh, that's awesome. That's why I don't ever let anybody kill her or another.
No.
That's my pup trainer.
Ever happened to you?
Oh yeah, and like I said, so we ran that cat that day when they were 5 months old, and she bailed like 10 times. In front of them, and we've dumped a couple other dogs, that my buddies had. They came and met me, and we got them on the race, and it just turned out to a really good day of training.
So how do you know her when you see her?
It's not so much what she looks like, it's just her habits. So where I pick up her tracks, and and where I know I can predict, okay, if this is the same cat, she's going to run up around this point, then she's going to cut back to this saddle, down into this next drainage, and then she'll do that. So, they have home ranges, and you kind of figure it out. Each probably, I'd say they kind of roam maybe a 10 mile by 10 mile area, about 100 square miles. These big toms, they might run, 40 miles by 40 miles. I mean, they've got a big home range, some of these big. You just get to know where they live, what kind of rock piles. In the wintertime when there's snow on everything, they get up in a rock pile that's on a south-facing slope, off a little point. So if you find a track and, it runs up there and that's where they jump her, you do that 2 or 3 times in a row, then you just kind of got to assume it's the same cat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So will those females have more of a home range than a male, right? Like the males will go hundreds of freaking miles, right?
Oh yeah, there ain't no doubt. We call, some of them we call them compass cats. Well, they'll take off walking, whether they're relocating or just going. But we followed one cat. We followed him 3 different days in a row for a total of 67 miles.
Jeez.
And along that 67 miles, this cat killed 14 elk in 67 miles.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and all he was eating out of them was the heart and the lungs.
Damn.
Oh, that dude's a killer. He's a
that's
savage.
a bad boy. He's like, I don't even like the back straps, bud. I don't play with that shit.
Yeah, no, some of these kills were 200-300 yards apart.
Damn.
Holy crap. That dude's doing it for fun.
Yeah, he was just killing. He was following a herd of elk that was migrating. And yeah, he was killing them. He wasn't even eating the livers or nothing. He was just following them and killing them and having a little snack. Yeah, he was killing like 2 or 3 times a day. Mm-hmm.
Golly.
So we followed him. And we followed him. This was when I was down in New Mexico. It wasn't with my own dogs. I was working for a different outfitter. But we basically followed him from the border of the Jicarilla Indian Reservation onto the Ute Indian Reservation in southwest Colorado. So we knew another houndsman that was his area, and we told him where that cat had crossed into the reservation. These cats generally kind of, will travel through the same area about every 9 to 14 days. So he just kept checking that crossing, and he caught that cat coming back out of the Ute reservation and got him caught and got him killed. Had a full belly of meat. It was 223 pounds.
Wow.
Whoa.
On a full belly, so it's probably 190 legit live weight.
That's Bill. That's a giant.
Yeah, giant.
That's a big pussy. I'm huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've killed one personally myself, and he weighed about, I think he was 187 pounds, and he was 8'7", 8'7" and a half from the tip of his nose to the end of his tail. Yeah.
Now, I was sticking with you pretty good up till now. I mean, are you a hog hunter too? Because that's a lot.
I've done it.
You see what I'm saying, right? Okay, I'm just saying. You sure it was that? Okay.
That's a 350.
That thing was 400. No, that's amazing.
That's a huge cat.
Yeah, like it's amazing. Like,
oh yeah.
Like where we're at, you'll occasionally hear of a cat, and like 100 pounds, 125 pounds.
Yeah.
That's gonna be an adult cat here. It's gonna be a big cat for the most part,
It's just one cruising.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like as far as I know,
99% of the people say they see them didn't see them.
Oh, it's a black panther
That's
here.
A black panther.
Yeah,
they see the black panthers jump across the road every week by my house.
Dad and I seen one time when I was a little kid, and that we went frog gigging.
Game warden said there's none here. Nate was with me.
It was me and my middle brother, and
we don't know shit.
And I was shining a light on the bank, and it was like on this real steep face, and I seen a tail. I was like, look at that tail. I was like, Dad, I think it's a fox. And we followed the tail up, and it was just a cat just sitting there
looking at us.
And I was like, Dad, what is that? And he goes, turn the light off. We're going to walk back to the truck. Because it was like 75 yards across the water.
I had a frog gig. And
Yeah. So my brother was like, what was that? I was like, nothing, Luke. We're going to the truck. And he was like,
we were 50 yards from the truck.
He's like, tell me what it is. Like, no,
so we were probably 50, 60 yards from the truck. So he would have had to cross the water to get to us. I was like, I'm not worried about all that. But at the same time, I don't know enough about it. And I ain't real smart. And I got a frog gig. So I was like, this is probably not going to work out well for that cat. You know. I ain't gonna lie though, it made my ass clench up. I was like, Nate was just shining because like you don't see them. You never see them.
I've never seen another one ever.
And we hear of them all these other places, but there's none here. And it's advertised. It was drilled in our heads on TV. It's like, if you have a sighting of a mountain lion, please do not call Game and Fish. We do not have any. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh shit, that's not a bobcat.
Yeah, it wasn't black. It was the nice buckskin tan, and it was probably, from what I remember, it was probably about 100 pounds.
Yeah,
it wasn't a real big cat, but it was just
it's big enough though.
It was just like, holy shit, that's a cat.
They said the same thing with the bears, and I came home and I had 19 shoats strolled out in my yard. These shoats were about 60 pounds, and there's a bear sitting on the power line, and I said, wow, that's a bear. And I just kept sitting there drinking my beer. My father-in-law pulled up and he turned around. He's got him a cold beer and he leaned up on the hood. He said, hey, that looks like a big old bear sitting up there. I said, yeah, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. And I called Alabama Game and Fish at the time. And this has been years and years ago. And they were like, we get these calls all the time. They're not here. I was like, okay, bro, no problem.
Yeah,
not a problem. Mm-hmm. Several years later, they found him we have a fire tower. And it's 1 mile from my house through the woods. And he was inside the fire tower. And they were trying to get him out.
Weird.
And the same officer that I talked to originally, he looked at me. He's like, well, I looked at him. I was like, well, what are you going to do? He said, hey, man, as far as I know, they don't exist. So that son of a bitch ain't real. She's like, I don't know what to tell him. I was like, well, he's got to get out of there. I said, well, I'm going back to the house. Y'all let me know how it works out. Never heard nothing else about it. Never heard anything else about it. So that's the long and the short of our experience with mountain lions.
Yeah.
So the whole thing with the Black Panther deal jumping across the road, Ricky, how often is that out there?
Oh, dude, I've heard the Black Panther thing once when I was growing up, and it was we were fishing the pond and we heard it across the pond and then we seen it across the pond but the mountain lion shit's pretty regular. Okay. And to be said, like there was one last year that was seen on trail camera and on like house cameras and shit, like south of me. And it was actually going through pretty major cities.
Yeah.
And you could tell he was on a mission. Like it was, he's in Plano one day, and then Frisco, and then Louisville, and like he was covering some ground. Like he was trying to get the fuck out of here. Yeah. It was like
that's probably the one that was here in Alabama.
Because there was a bunch of cameras. Yeah, it was, but there was actually trail cam videos. Like it was a sure enough line. Like there was no doubt about it.
Last year or year before last, they had the trail cam videos of a mountain lion, and it was over toward Birmingham. It was on one side of the state. 3 days later, it was in the middle of the state.
I think that was 3 or 4 years ago.
It's been a few years, but last year we had a black bear that was right here in Carbon Hill, and I knew, bro, like I'm telling you, I was like, don't put that picture on the news, because I'd seen it on Facebook, and sure enough, it made the 6 o'clock news. I said, that bear's ass is burnt up tonight, I promise you. Every coon dog, coon dog was turned loose, son. I'm talking about, and wasn't everything probably treated except the plot. And Walker dogs just burned him up. Boy. No, I don't know. That's all. I just made that up. But like, I do know a few guys that they literally went and turned out. I don't know if they ever treat him or not. Of course, they're not going to tell you, and I wouldn't either.
No. Mm-mm.
You know, but at the same time,
What
it
goes
had to
on
be
in the
pretty cool.
woods stays in the woods.
That's exactly right. That's exactly. Did the mountain lion scream though like that? That like people talk about?
Man, I've never heard one scream,
Oh
so
my god, that's all
I
you
guess I
hear.
wouldn't be the person to ask.
What
I
about
mean, I've heard them growl. You know,
have you heard the
I mean,
tales?
I've heard them. I've heard about people. Yeah, I've heard people walking back to camp and the mountain lion up on the ridge, screaming, following them the whole way. You know, I've never heard that, but I've heard some foxes that sound like they're screaming bloody murder.
I've heard bobcats do some crazy stuff as well, but like here, it's a what do they say? It's a woman screaming, it's a baby crying, and
Bloody murder.
Yeah, if you hear any of that, that Black Panther's finna jump across the road and get you, boy. Eat your guts out. Gonna eat your guts out. I was just curious if they really did make a lot of vocalizations.
Yeah, I mean, they've got you get one in a cave or something. I mean, they've got a really deep, guttural, growl to them. You know, I know from experience. It's the one time that I had my dog Belle my dogs generally don't get chewed up, but once it seems like each one will get it, one time kind of bad. And this was the time for Belle. We had been following this cat. I had a buddy down from Nebraska that was trying to kill a mountain lion. A good friend of mine. This is about his third time he'd come down. We'd shoot some females, and I wasn't going to let him shoot though. But we finally got on a big tom, and we're out in an area that we call the burn. A big fire came through there, but it is super rocky, nasty. Just a bunch of big boulder piles. There's a creek and a river that runs through there. You're getting a bunch of big slab rocks and cliffs. It's just not a good place to chase cats. A good place for dogs to get hurt. The cats don't go up trees. They end up in rock piles and holes. But that's where there's big toms there. So we were going to try to catch this cat for my buddy anyways, and ended up the dogs ran him into a big giant rock pile when we got up there, kind of the top of it. The dogs were kind of spread out. Nobody really knew where that cat was. And, the guys that are with, they just kind of, we kind of gave it up. I didn't think there was a very good chance of us being able to locate, that tom in that big rock pile, but, I had to try anyway. So I took off my backpack, and that's where my 357 was, inside my backpack. And I didn't grab it out. So I grabbed my main dog, Belle, and started crawling, into this big boulder field. Of course, the snow, when it melts from the sun, it drips down into the rocks, and just everything gets covered with ice. And so you have a bunch of ice caves in this boulder pile that we're trying to find this mountain lion in. And I get to this one little point where there's a rock, and I have to kind of jump down off this rock. I can't just step down there. I can't lower myself down. I know I'm going to have to jump, but I can see the rock that I'm going to land on is covered with ice. So I know as soon as I hit it, my feet are going to slide out from underneath me. But that's where we needed to go. So as I kind of jumped off that little thing onto the ice below, I made sure I covered my head real good. And so when I hit, my feet slid out. Sure enough, I hit that rock pretty good. But when I slid down, as soon as I got to the bottom of it, that's all I could hear around this rock on the other side of it was. And Belle was up above me, heard that. And so she jumped off the rock. She hit the ice, slid down. And so we're both piled up against this rock in the dark. And this lion comes around the corner of the rock right there, and Belle, of course, just immediately went after that lion. And so they were scrapping, and I grabbed Belle by the tail, and so I was pulling her back, trying to get her away from the lion, and I finally had to reach up with my boot and kind of bop the cat in the nose and got Belle free from there, and I was able to grab her collar. But now I'm just sitting like 2 feet away from this 150-pound mountain lion in this cave with my dog, and I am yelling at the top of my lungs for one of my friends to bring me a gun. I'm just, I mean, we're just in this standoff, and I'm, the cat's kind of backed up, and we're just all looking at each other. And so this goes on for like 30 minutes where I am screaming, "Give me a gun. Somebody bring me a damn gun." And they can't hear me because they're up at the top of the rock pile with all the other dogs are up there, barking and still making noise. And finally, my buddy, Sean, comes down, and he's walking up above me. I can feel some snow come down on my head. So I start yelling at him again, and man, he's hot because he thinks I'm just cussing him and talking to him that way for no reason. So, hey, listen here, you some bitch, you better quit at me that way. I don't know who you think you're talking to. I said, just bring me a fucking gun. Just bring me a gun. And finally he figures out what's going on, and he comes down there, and we get the other dogs down there and kind of get everybody tied back. And so now we're trying to talk my buddy Kyle into shooting this cat. And it's the guy from Nebraska. And he said, "Well, how am I supposed to do that?" I said, "Well, you're going to have to crawl in there and stick your gun in his face and shoot him." "Well, I don't know. Well, how close am I going to be?" I said, "Man, a foot and a half maybe, Well, I don't know if I can do. Well, if you want to kill that cat, that's what you're going to have to do. So get in there and just peek around the corner." And I said, as soon as you see him, just shoot him right underneath his chin. And so he goes crawling in there. He calls it, and all you can hear is that cat start grumbling and go, and Kyle comes back and nope. Nope. Not going to happen. And so then we had another girl with us. She'd been, kind of apprenticing, with our group to become a hounds woman. She was pretty young at the time, I think 18 or 19, but she speaks up, and, Bailey said, well, I'll do it. I'll shoot it. "All right then, sister, come on." And the same thing, we put a gun in her hand, and she crawled around, and we heard some rustling and some growling, and then here comes Bailey comes out of there. Nope. So I had one more buddy. I had a buddy, Aaron. He's a really good taxidermist here in Colorado. But we used to guide deer hunts and stuff out in eastern Colorado. He's ex-military. He was in Iraq, and he was on the police department, sheriff's department here, where he ran the SWAT team, and been an MMA fighter, and pretty tough dude. So he said, "Well, man, I'll get in there. I'll get him killed." And I said, "Okay." So sure enough, he crawled in there, and we hear him going, and we hear a bunch of rustling and growling, and then we hear, pop, pop, pop. And then I hear a gun go scattering across the rocks. I hear a bunch more rustling and rolling around, and then pop, pop, just real muffled. That was it. And then Aaron come crawling out of there and just kind of looks at all this and said, "Well, yeah, that got a little interesting." And apparently when he got in there, he had shot that cat the first time, hit him in the top of the head, and it just creased his skull, didn't go in his skull, just kind of ricocheted. And then when the cat came through it, he shot it in the mouth and then underneath the chin. But by that time, the cat was already on top of him. And as it was dying, was pushing him, he fell backwards kind of and dropped his gun. Being ex-military and being SWAT team and stuff, apparently he had a boot gun, a little like a Derringer, that he was able to pull down and stick up underneath that cat's chin. And those were the last two shots that you heard, was pop, pop. And that's how that went.
Finisher.
Yeah. Yes, that would be our definition of things getting a little bit Western.
Well, that's pretty Western.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love them. Luckily, it's not. Yeah, they're fun every once in a while, but if it was like that every time, I don't think I could take it. I love my dogs too much, and it's just I don't know that I could handle them getting hurt on a regular basis. I don't know how you guys deal with those hog dogs. I mean, they get cut fairly often, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm pretty new to the hog gun game, but like today it was like we caught 11 hogs with no teeth, and it was fucking awesome. I mean,
oh wow,
nobody got poked. Like my catch dog stuck her tooth through her lip, but other than that, like nobody got messed up. Everybody's healthy. We caught a bunch of pigs. We did the landowner a little service, and all was good, But none of those pigs make the cool picture. They don't make the cool toothy picture. So I don't really know.
Yeah.
I just assume catch 11 pigs and be done with it, and the dogs be healthy.
Exactly. It just seems for us. It just seems like every day is a little different. Sometimes we'll catch one boar that's 150, 175 pounds, and he's got like 1 inch teeth, and none of the dogs are severely injured, but they got a bunch of flesh wounds, through the first and second layer of skin. And, some staples or just some wound spray, keep them clean and they're back in action. But, very rarely do we ever have like an instant where like a dog is like badly wounded where it's like, oh, they're going to die, or like they need surgery, or like they cut a tendon or something like that. And, they're going to not be able to function at the same level again. That's maybe
that's good.
That's maybe once or twice a year. Usually, it seems like everybody has that one hog where it's like once a year. It's like, damn, they shit wrecked our dogs. But other than that, it's like Ricky said. A lot of times, you just have a good time.
Yep, I always say that a day that ends in treed cats and no staples is a good day.
Indeed.
That's a fact. Have you ever went with pig dogs? Have you ever done that?
I have a friend that lives in Oklahoma, and so I did get to go out and do that. Man, he took us on. It was some private duck lease that needed some extra help, and man, we had a great time. We killed some good, real big boars. I think we killed 3 of them that were, in that 280 to 300 pound range. With knives. That's how they were doing it. Using. And they were running the same thing. They had kind of hounds with curs, and then their catch dogs they were using Argentine dogos. So that was pretty neat to see those big dogs, that were specifically made and bred to do that kind of work. To watch them do their thing was very impressive. And this guy had a good handle on his pack. I mean, his dog stayed silent. His tracking dogs and cur dogs stayed silent until they actually jumped the pigs. In the truck and stuff, there was no barking. He'd send them out and they'd take off until they got right in the middle of them, and then you could hear them. They'd open up, and once they got them bayed up, again, even the dogos were real good about, he could walk them in kind of at a heel, didn't even have to have them on a leash, walking them into the bay up, and then he would send them and they would go in there. So it was fun. It was the real deal for sure.
That's kind of my goal with the catch dog that I've got now. She's half dogo, and my goal is to kind of not have to run a lead. And she's really, really chill on a leash, lead, and so I think it's definitely doable. I just gotta work. I gotta work towards it, and she'll if I can. I'm working on kind of the tones right now with the collar. I haven't really had to shock her or anything, so I'm working on that. But she's really such a breeze on the lead that it's not that big of a deal. But I've ever led big, giant ass catch dogs that were miserable to be getting drugged by. You know what I mean? It's like
right.
God Almighty, like they're just pulling you through briar after briar. And you're like, all right, I'm done with this shit. So,
Yeah, and
having a dog that you wouldn't have to lead in would be really awesome.
And that's for us, it's having a dog that I don't have to lead out. Is the main thing. We're climbing some serious mountains and some pretty rocky cliffs. And I can't be wrestling dogs and leashes and stuff. So I don't, man, I can't remember the last time I actually carried a leash. I carry some quick little tie downs. If I just want to tie them up real quick while we shoot a lion, but when we get done with the tree, and we're just gonna what we call tree and free, catch and release.
Yeah.
We say, hey, that's enough. Let's go. We're done, and we turn around and walk out of there. And those dogs will, generally, will come. The new ones sometimes you might have to tone them a little bit just to get them off there. But yeah, that's the goal. Is I don't want to have to use leashes with my dogs ever.
Yeah. No, that's yeah, I agree. I always have one on me just because I've ran into circumstances where dogs are getting to be assholes or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I've got a buddy, he never carries one, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you got to have a lead on you. Like, what if this, what if that, what if this? He's like, we'll be all right. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
I'd have it on me and not need it.
Yeah, I basically just took a bunch of both parachute cord and made just quick little slip leashes, basically that I carry in my chest pack. And, I said the only time they go on is just for, a couple minutes if we're going to shoot a cat. I don't like to drop cats down into the middle of my dogs, while they're still alive. Those cats can do pretty fair amount of damage with those claws pretty quick if they get a hold of a dog. So I'll usually, if we're going to shoot them, I'll tie my dogs back until we do that. But other guys do it differently. Some guys will let them fall right into the dog.
Yeah. So I was scrolling through, kind of doing my little pre-podcast due diligence. So I seen you holding a leopard up. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough. Like I said, I've been a professional hunting guide my whole life. When the cameras first started coming out, that were TV production quality, late 90s, that private people could buy. I started filming a lot of my hunts and filming hunts for, other people. And that led to me, being able to film some hunts for some TV shows that were on the Outdoor Channel. So I think I was filming for Triducon's World of Sports Afield for a while, Tracks Across Africa, which, it just opened up. I got to travel all over the world filming hunts. So probably the leopard that you saw that was in Mozambique, giant leopard. I think he was, what they do it in kilos. So I think he was 81 or 83 kilos, which is about 180 pounds, I think. So it's 70, something like that, 2.2 pounds per kilo. Is that right? Yeah. So it's a big giant leopard. Just a beast of a leopard. And that's ultimately my goal is I would love to go run those with dogs, someday. But this one was not done with dogs. Basically the way that they hunt them is over bait. You shoot an impala or someplace and hang it up in a tree, to let that get a leopard to come and start feeding on them. So I think we sat maybe 3 nights, 3 evenings before that cat finally came in. And just such an awesome creature. I hope I get to go back there and hunt them again with dogs someday.
So if you compare them to a mountain lion, like what's the differences?
Oh man, I'll put it this way, if mountain lions had the attitude of a leopard, we probably wouldn't be doing this too much, because and I really don't know what those statistics are, but I promise those guys over there lose a lot of dogs. Unfortunately, those leopards are just so much more aggressive. Like mountain lions, I can go be right next to them in a tree. Even if they're bait up on the ground, I'm not worried. I can walk up to them within 10 feet and it doesn't bother me. yeah, I really don't have any fear, to be honest with you, of a mountain lion. I have a respect for them. And I know, yeah, they can hurt you, they get a hold of you, but I'm not, it doesn't make me nervous being around them. Like where a leopard is just a different beast, just so much more aggressive. Um, yeah, they are going to attack. If they see you, if they can get to you, if there's not something between you and them, especially if they're yeah, they are absolutely going to attack you. And you just don't have to deal with that with the mountain lion. You know, once in a while you get one with a bad attitude. I'm not saying they're all the same. And yeah, there's some of them that, yeah, could definitely be assholes, but for the most part, you know, they're pretty calm, you know, once you get them treed. You know, I walked up and had dogs, you know, blowing the rooftop off, and that cat will be asleep up there, you know, believe it or not. You know, they'll just once they get up in those trees, they're just kind of, you can tell that they're mildly annoyed and they want you to go away, but it's not the end of the world for them, the dogs, for us.
What about physically? Like, are their heads the same size or paws bigger? Like, I mean,
on the leopards are going to be
look way bigger.
Yeah, no, the leopards' heads are definitely a lot more muscular, a lot beefier. Yeah, and their front shoulders, you know, they're even a little bit more stout. I would say they're a little bit shorter bodied, generally speaking, and more compact, you know. Maybe not quite so much as a jaguar is, but
Right.
yeah, they're definitely I think they're probably a more powerful creature, you know, than the mountain lion is.
No, I seen you holding that thing up, and I was like, dude, that it doesn't. I mean, obviously it's a cat, it's a big cat, but it just looked more filled out and more, like you said, just looked more athletic. I don't know, to an extent. I don't know what to say, but I don't know. It looks scarier.
Yeah, no, they're they're the heavyweights, you know, of the bodybuilders for sure. You know, they've definitely got a more muscular structure. It's probably just because they're generally speaking most of the time hunting a little bit larger game, a little bit tougher game. You know, I guess an elk and a kudu are about the same size, but for some reason in Africa, just all the animals seem to be a little bit tougher, and it's just because it's just a more violent, you know, scenario going on where everything is trying to eat and kill each other. But they're tough.
So would that be if you were to pick to run a game with dog, would that be your top of the list?
No.
Or do you have
it would be,
else?
but yeah, no, I want to catch snow leopards in Nepal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what
that's
what I want to do. Yeah. That's what I want to do. Catch snow leopards in Nepal or Pakistan. That would be.
Are there? Have you seen that before? Is that a thing?
No, it's not a thing. I've never heard of it ever being done.
Okay. I was just making sure I wasn't crazy. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen it, but that sounds fucking awesome.
No, they consider them to be an endangered species, so you're not allowed to hunt them at all.
That'd be even harder.
Well, to be honest with you,
like, that makes me want to do it now. It's like, shit, there's not that many. All right, let's see.
Well, but that's just it. There's plenty of them. They should, in the name of wildlife conservation and raising funds, you know, for more research and for those villages and stuff out there, they absolutely should be hunting some of them, you know, because there's plenty of them there. When I was in Nepal, I went over there to film a hunt. One of our pack horses actually got killed by a snow leopard, and you know, ate off of it, and you know, they're not supposed to do anything about it, you know, but these guys, you know, the people depend on those pack horses to, you know, for a living. You know, they go back and forth from village to village, and when they lose one of their animals, it's a big loss. And so we started talking with the Nepalese people, and they said, man, they are everywhere. There's so many snow leopards. They're everywhere, you know, and they don't believe in, you know, personally, they don't believe in killing animals and stuff like that, but they say that, you know, that a lot of the people, they poison the snow leopards that eat the pack animals, you know, just so there's actually, because there's so many of them, they are being poached, they're being poisoned. Whereas if you put, a monetary value and had a snow leopard hunt or an auction, where
There's no
they
telling
sold
what that
2
would.
permits.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, dude.
Could
Yeah,
you
it's going for $1
imagine?
million at least.
Yeah,
Million.
At least $1 million.
that's a $1 million hunt, no doubt.
Yeah, at
way
least.
more than that.
And
Yeah,
right.
I
Yeah,
get it.
it could be even more than that. But so you do a couple of those, the amount of funds that you could, raise for that whole, valley or whatever. I mean, you could build schools, hospitals. You could, do, some kind of livestock breeding program. There's just a lot of good stuff that could come from that money, as well as, pay for some anti-poaching patrols and, some education with the landowners and the packers, or some reimbursement for the pack horses that get killed by the snow leopard. Instead of poisoning the snow leopard, pay the guy to get a new horse, give him a little bit extra, then they don't want to kill the snow leopards no more, right?
Yeah.
But that's what I want to do. I want to run a snow leopard with my dogs.
Sweet.
I've seen a handful of videos lately of them sling llamas or whatever the fuck they are.
Oh yeah,
those leopards off their necks, like, I mean, quick, boy.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Is that the same thing I'm talking about?
I think that maybe what you're talking about is the panthers that are down in South America, like down in Patagonia. They're basically the equivalent of our mountain lions, and that's what they're doing down there. They're eating, like I said, it's like a llama. I forget, it's alpaca.
Alpaca, yeah.
But it's not. Yeah, it's kind of something like that. But yeah, they jump on them and they grab them up by their head and that long neck. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Where they start going flopping those
like
cats around like a rag doll. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
down there,
the snow leopard video I'm thinking of is like jumping off on a sheep of some sort or a goat.
Oh, the ibex,
like
yes.
bounding down the mountain, like, I mean, wrecking out,
Yes.
and that leopard never left.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, that's the same one I've seen. That's like what you're talking about. When he's coming down
those
the
are the
mountain,
ibex.
it's insane.
Yeah, to think that an animal can fall, hundreds of feet, bouncing off cliffs, rolling. I mean, they do, injure themselves and they kill themselves doing that sometimes. But the fact that it doesn't happen every time is incredible that they survive it at all.
Yeah.
Imagine how hungry you could be to have to do that. You know what I mean? Like, you're a starving animal if you're ready to die for it. Like, you're ready to bound off a mountain and stay hooked the whole time. Like, that's an animal with some ambition. Like, they're trying to survive.
In the bulldog world, we call that game.
Yeah, boy.
They game, buddy.
Yeah, they all in for sure.
Man, that's awesome. Well, hey, Patrick, you got anything you would like to finish on? Is there anything that you'd like to touch bases on? Anything you want to tell the masses?
No, not really. Other than, we just really need to, be a little bit better, I think, about supporting each other's sports, paying attention to what's going on, in other places in other states. All of our activities are constantly under attack by the anti-hunters. And, like I said, we're not always going to get along. We don't always agree with the way another man tends to or wants to run his dogs. But at the end of the day, if we don't, if we don't hang together, we're going to hang separately, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've got to stick together, pay attention, and give each other, support, whenever we can.
Yes, sir.
That's a fact, man. I just for being in a few years with I'll be honest, I didn't want to jump on into social media shit and all this stuff, but it just kind of way it happened. It is what it is. I'm here now, and speaking from kind of all ends of the hounds or dogs or anything. Like, I'm down for any kind of dog, right? It doesn't matter what it is, and at the end of the day, like there's guys that will attack their own. It'd be
Mm-hmm.
a hog dogger that's talking shit about his own hog dogging buddy. There'll be guys that are talking about, you got lion hounds. I've had lion houndsmen talk to me about running pigs and deer, or deer hunters talking to me about catching deer. And it's just, gosh damn, it's so ridiculous. Like we're all on the same team. Like, yeah, maybe I post something a little more different than you, or you post something that I wouldn't post. And at the end of the day, like, boys, we're on the same page. Like it's,
Lord, yes.
I, I mean, gosh damn, like do you, and do it with a little bit of morale. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
you got to have some morals. You got to do you got to do the right thing when you can. But at the end of the day, like we're all on the same damn team, man. Like I don't know.
It's
Yeah,
That
no,
shit
that's right.
you're
gets
right.
to me.
It's hard for me to see how anybody that truly loves working a dog can fault another man working a dog, no matter how he's doing, no matter what the dog's doing, what game it's running or anything, uh, and especially within
Or
his
what if you're
zone.
better than them?
Yeah, well, I mean,
That's
I'm
that.
at the
That's
top already, so it doesn't matter. Like I already know.
the yeah.
Yeah, everybody should know that.
Come at me, dog.
You know what I'm saying? So, but but no, it's like I seen a guy made put a video up, and his dogs were in the middle of 100 head of cows, and they were baying the piss out of his hog. And I was like, "Hey, your cow
Yeah,
dogs aren't
I
cow
know
dogging very
exactly
good."
what you're talking about.
And
Yeah,
but the true work of the dog was amazing. Like those they
yeah,
paid no attention to those cows. Some of my dogs
Mm-hmm.
probably would have paid attention to the cows too. I'll be honest with you. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
yeah.
And so it's like you
Mm-hmm.
can appreciate that. Personally, myself, I would not put that video on in the context that they did it because they were like,
Mm-hmm.
and I know it was all in good deal. They were like, hey, F the cows, we don't care, or we don't care about your cows, we're worried about the hog. Yes, we get that. But from a rancher's point of view, I'd be like, shit, I don't know if I'd want them in the middle of my cows.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not
Yeah,
going to fault them.
yeah.
I'm gonna support it. Now if they were out there
Yep.
and had the dogs hanging off the cows and posted that, I'd be like, well, dude, that's why would you do that?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't see
We
how
got
There
to
are
give each
those.
other a little
There
bit
are
more
those.
leeway.
that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
And Ricky
that is
posts a
a
lot of
problem. Like
videos.
there are those.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying there are those where it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
okay, like yeah, we're on the same page, but like, what the fuck are you thinking, man?
Yeah,
Like,
so it makes it hard to support
Sometimes
it.
you got to get your teammates' ass when
yeah,
they're acting a fool.
Yeah, and that's true.
yeah.
You need to private messenger be like, "Hey man, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
But you ain't got to do it in public.
No,
Uh,
I don't think you should really ever do it in public. Like if there's
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Those are conversations between dog owners that can be held privately. And
yes,
like I said, we do have to police our own ranks.
without a doubt.
And it's our responsibility. To when you see somebody doing something, just as in normal life, that's not quite right. You pull that person aside and you say, "Hey, man, I noticed this. I just wanted to ask you about it. I'm not trying to accuse you of anything, but just." Have you ever thought of maybe doing something a little bit different?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or it's just and I've done it before, and I've been called out.
Yeah.
I have. I've had
Sure.
people,
yeah.
and they're like, "Dude, man, that was pretty rank," and I'm like, well, "Dang, I didn't. You ought to see the rank ones. Is what that's what I'm thinking. And
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think.
so there's times where I post some stuff, and I'm like, I can't be ashamed of what I do. But at the
Right.
same time, I shouldn't
Yeah.
be shameful in showing what I'm doing.
Mhm.
I shouldn't put stuff that would bring shame to the community.
Yeah.
Dogs
Right.
injured. Hey, dogs get injured, yes. And I've got some tough dogs, and I've had some that paid the ultimate price, and we all have. But I'm not
Mhm.
going to post that. Like there was a video not long ago, a guy literally had a video of his dog dead and was talking about, well, I sat here with him till he took his last breath. Why weren't you trying to save him? Why weren't you taking him to the vet? Why wouldn't you doing what you could do instead of videoing the dog?
Mhm. Mhm.
You got to deal with that kind of stuff. But
Yep.
at the same time, it's like instead of berating this guy or just talking bad to him, he might really not know any better. Just ask him, say, man, what was the situation, man? What all happened? Ask what happened first. And then when he tells you some crazy shit, be like, well, dude, look, there's better ways to handle this. And this is why you're getting the flack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not the end of the world. Doesn't mean we can't be friends.
No.
We can't, still be buddies, but, let's try to learn from it and move on.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah. People are really getting their feels over deer. And
Yeah.
Yes.
and whitetail deer are king, whitetail deer
yes.
king and where we're at, and we're in the South. I don't know about up there where you're at, Patrick, but whitetail deer king, and by God, if there's anything close to a dog on a deer, it's the end of the world. And it's like,
it's bad.
You called me, bro. Your people called me to be here, so I can't post. I will not post any of those videos if there's anything remotely close to a type A or whatever. There's no stretching. There's none of that stuff. Even though it's legal and we're doing the job, and this person's putting the deer on the tailgate and getting their meat in the freezer that they would not have normally.
That they shot.
That they shot in the ass and they wounded. But yeah, I try my best. I have a bunch, but I won't post those. And
it would be
and
so
it's
awesome.
It's different aspects. Like, oh, I've got some awesome ones, but you can't do it. And it is what it is. And other houndsmen see pig dog guys as being more vulgar and more Bill, and and other guys see some of the bear guys are a little too rank, and it's just like, you gotta draw a line in the sand, and at the end of the day, like, we're all on the same page, we're all on the same team. There's no reason for us to dog each other. I mean,
no, that's right. I mean, there's
no sense in it.
We all have something equally wrong with us if this is what our passion is,
That's exactly right.
I'm upfront about it. I'm like, I am crazy.
Yeah.
Not dangerous, but crazy.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I ain't no
That's
doubt.
a fact.
My wife told me that the other day. Third night in a row, getting up at 11 o'clock at night to load dogs and go drive around looking for tracks in the snow. She just looked at me and said, man, there's something wrong with you. I said, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. At least we both know it,
I'm just speaking off my own circumstance. We're trying to train my dogs to track deer, right? We did the wounded deer recovery deal, and shot a deer a month ago, and I had my two boys with me, and deer fell off the face of this damn cliff, and I'm dragging this deer up. We got one boy's crying, he's down below me, one boy's above me, wondering why I'm taking so long, and all these things. And I remember I sent a video to a couple of buddies, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why am I doing this? What? Like, I didn't have to, you know what I mean? Like, we could have not shot this doe and trained the dogs on it. Like, I could have just went home and all these things. I'm like, what? There's something seriously wrong with me. Like, I like, it's not torture, but it's got to be close to it. I mean, I don't mind.
You're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, that's what it is. But anyhow, man, hey, Patrick, I appreciate you having me on. Man, we've talked, and I can just tell, you know your stuff about hounds, and I'm very thankful for having you on. I've learned a lot tonight. So
yes.
Anyways, do you have a YouTube and all these things that these guys can keep in touch and stay track with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, probably the best way. I don't do Facebook, but I do have an Instagram, and on Instagram I am pmonte3006. So PMONTE 3006. And then I do have a YouTube channel, but man, I'd love for you guys to go check that out. And it's just under P Monte Outdoors. So again, it's PMONTE, P Monte Outdoors, and that's on YouTube. And I've got a bunch of good videos there.
Sweet.
And so do you outfit a lot of things other than just hounds, right? Like you'll do a lot of outfit on anything.
Yeah, I'm not so much as an outfitter as I am just a professional guide. I like to work for other outfitters, let them deal with all the headaches and mess. I just like to show up and hunt stuff. But yeah, no, I do that. I was famous there for a while for out in eastern Colorado hunting big giant mule deer and whitetails. We were killing a lot of 180-inch, 200-inch mule deer, and I don't know, I think I killed 7 or 8 whitetails out there that were over 180. I think we killed 4 maybe whitetails that were over 200 inches out there. So yeah, still guiding and chasing elk, and hound dogs just become kind of my priority. I guess we all go through stages in life, and I finally landed on being a houndsman, and I think this is just where I'm going to spend the rest of my days, getting better at it and training dogs.
Man, that's the stage I've been at. I've been fortunate to kill some pretty big deer, and now it's like, I don't know. It's just not on the top of my agenda as it is to train a puppy on a doe or something like that. So it's cool to hear it on your end, and likewise on my end. I'm there. I've kind of conquered some of those goals, and now the goals have nothing to do but anything but dogs. So
yep, that's where I'm at.
I appreciate you having on. That's all.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good talking with you fellows, and
yes, sir.
Good luck with the rest of your seasons and training dogs.
Right
yes,
on.
sir. Thank you. You too.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Mm-hmm.
We'll see.